Hey, hi, hello. It's a beautiful day in Malgan. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Ever noticed something about three? Three is magic for me. The best year of my life was 33. And the next best year was 66. So something about, I talked about trinities, something about three really resonates. And why I started there, I guess it's by the time. I'd like to talk to you today about cycles. And what brings this topic up today is that today I'm celebrating 840 plus moon years birthday. 840 plus moon years. And what's a moon year? Well, like all measurements, it's artificial, we made it up. All attempts to capture time in a linear fashion that makes it a little bit easier for our limited gray matter to grasp. When we start talking about no beginning and no end, it might leave most of us in a state of puzzlement. But a moon year, what is a moon year? A moon year is, my moon year at least, is full moon to almost full moon. And this is how many? 840 plus. I say plus because I didn't really calculate. I know that the cycle of the moon is 28 and a half days. And as sentient species, as inhabitants of this blue marble, we're sensitive and always have been to cycles. We talk about a sun year, how long that it takes the sun to how long it takes the earth. Who goes around what? How long it takes the earth. And that's not true either. I don't know I'll tell you the truth. I don't really know what a year measures. 365 days. As I mentioned before, I know what I need to know when I need to know it. And maybe right now, I really don't need to know. Probably go to Google afterwards, and do another housekeeping, another take, another time, and fill in the information. I learned as a teacher, university lecturer, don't be afraid to say I don't know. I've never been afraid to say I don't know. There's so much that I don't know. Here in Taiwan, teachers are a little reticent because teachers are held in high esteem, and it's one of the best things about here. Allows the teacher a lot of respect. And maybe teachers in a lot of places don't get the same kind of respect. But teachers feel pressure to know everything. So sometimes I believe that they make things up, maybe subconsciously, while grasping for straws, so that they don't have to say, I do not know, I don't know. It's not difficult, teachers, come on, it's not difficult. I've watched through the years, and I know teachers have tricks. When somebody asks a question, the teacher is caught flat-footed, doesn't know the answer right away. One of the teacher tricks will turn to someone, one of the students, and say, that's a good question, what do you think? And that's both hoping that they'll get a glimpse from their students, because learning This teaching is not one-way relationship. Just as learning is not a one-way relationship. Teacher should and does and will and has learned from the students. This is what teaching and learning are, again, part of the opposites that we've talked about before. They're actually the same. So, the caveat that I want to share with anyone that's teaching out there is nothing's wrong to say I don't know, but follow up with I will find out. I'll find out. And do it. Don't forget, credibility is really important. Don't forget that young minds are waiting for you to fill them in. Or not. But as a teacher, it's part of your responsibility to go and find the answer. And to remember, usually I would use the beginning of the next class. The next time I saw the students, usually 1 week later, and I would share what I discovered, what I found out. But I would also encourage questions. Any of you that know anything about Asian students, getting them to ask a question is really tough. And because they weren't trained to ask questions. They were trained to shut up and listen. Shut up and listen. The teacher from on high would give a sermon. I remember asking one student, what did you think? Hoping to get a question. And they said, well, why don't you tell us what you think? And then I can answer the question based on what you think. And I laughed. No, it's not the way it works. I want you to learn. What is learning? What is critical thinking? All questions for an educator. All questions that need to be addressed here in Taiwan, because I believe university, one of the biggest, we have two objectives, two purposes I believe that you rarely hear of about a university education. The first and foremost is how to develop critical thinking. And critical thinking is no magic bullet, it's just learning to recognize what you think based on observation, based on what you've read, based on what you think. It's just your take on things. It's just your. But the important thing is to learn how to use your brain. And the second thing is to begin to discover who and what and why you are. Good time to start the inquiry. Maybe on a self-inquiry level, but it's not too early to start the spiritual inquiry. The big metaphysical questions that you can ask. Why? Why are we? What are we? Yeah. And maybe you need a reminder. Probably a third thing that I think is important here, where relationships are so critical, is to make friends. Maybe meet your future husband or wife. Maybe meet someone that you can compare to, someone that you can experience and compare to someone that you meet later. But I know that networking and relationships that you make at not only university, but all the way down to elementary school. I have friends my age here that still meet with their elementary school classmates. I can imagine even seeing one of mine. I do have one brother in Ventura. I call him brother, but dear friend, who I grew up with, Paul Paulson, who I do indeed know, going way back when. But it's not uncommon for whole groups of them, well into adulthood, to meet again. Cycles, celebrating cycles, celebrating the passage of time as we try to understand the concept of time. So, let's go back to my moons. We started there, and I started there from a purpose. 840 plus moons. I don't know if I told you that I say plus because I can't really calculate. I talked about 28 and a half days. And our Gregorian calendar doesn't come out only this month. Only last month had 28 days. And then every 4 years it gives it 29. It shows it's so imperfect, that we have to make an adjustment. And I understand here, lunar calendar, you think is tracing celebrating the moon years. But even they have to put I'm told that I don't know how many years, they have to put an extra month to make it come out neat and tidy. So 840 plus. But the amazing thing that this cycle, and we see it as repeating itself. Full moon. And I love the full moon, so I measure from the full moon. Some people might want to measure from new moon, but I love the new moon. I love what the moon does to the ocean, the tides, and I believe that the moon does the same thing. We're mostly water, so when it's full moon, we're pulled. And I was always pulled in a spiritual way. So it's, werewolves and what happens on the full moon. This is folklore from all of history, so there might be something to it. So anyway, I like to measure from full moon to the next full moon. And it's a cycle. It looks like casual observation tells us that it's a repetition of the same thing. But we know that it's never a repetition. It's the same moon that's gone through the same cycles. But each full moon is a new full moon. We've never had that full moon before. We'll never have that again. So it's not unusual for me to go up on the roof or go outside when I'm outside and look where the moon is. Look for when the moon is in the cycle. And I followed it long enough that, number one, I can tell you whether it's waxing or waning. Waxing means to get bigger, heading to the full moon. Waning means it seems to appear smaller. The moon is the same. The appearance, we experience it as smaller, waning, wax, and wane. Another cycle. So this is all aimed towards helping us appreciate, number one, that we respond on a very deep level to cycles. Not unlike, I think, that seed. The analogy of the seed is such a beautiful analogy. A seed that's going to become a redwood. I love the big trees, okay? A cypress. It's going to live thousands of years old. I'm really enamored. The big trees appeal to me. They speak to me. But in that seed is all the cycles. Trees that show the cycles by having circular patterns of growth. We can actually age the tree by looking at, counting the circles. Okay? So that idea that, but I talked about spiral. So maybe you can see, instead of flat horizontal cycles, the way that they show the moon, and if you think of instead spiraling in the sense that each full moon is unique and new and different from its predecessor and also from those that will follow. So I think this spiral kind of helps you visualize that even though we're going through the same 24-hour periods of days, and even 24 hours of a day, and just like a moon year, a day. But that day is, we even give them today, we even give them names, yesterday, tomorrow. And we do recognize a little bit that the day changes. And of course, if you carry this all the way down, or all the way up to its logical destination, we end up at the moment again, the all-inclusive moment that's unique and special and never to be repeated again. As human beings, we I remember Groundhog Day. Bill Murray was one of my favorite actors, and Groundhog Day, when he woke up in the morning and he had to relive each day, exact same people in his world. It's a very interesting movie. And I think this idea is a really popular one because it's appealing. Because even he started as a callous, egocentric, non-caring human being. But he was only able to escape this trap of daily repetition by improving himself, making himself a better man. That allowed him to escape. And you can see the appeal of this movie because the analogy is very apt. We're given opportunities, new moments, to make new discoveries, to make new efforts, new cycles to begin. It's always time to begin. Right now it's time to begin. And right now can be time to end. We all have a right now beginning moment, birth, whenever you want to say that life begins. Birth, our first breath. And we have our last breath in this body as we know it. What comes next is up for grabs. Yeah, it's up for interpretation, it's up for discovery. It can become a belief. I'm going to heaven. You're going to heaven, but I'm going to heaven. That's a belief. Who can tell you with any certainty what will happen? Nobody that I know of. Or nobody that's credible to me. So we talk about a lot of things that rebirth. We talk about a lot of things that people claim to have experiences. I don't really doubt that people have had these experiences. You can re-experience past lives. Of that, I'm relatively certain. Or you can experience something that is meant to point you to past lives. But What's the purpose? Well, in the spiritual purpose is something that you experience along the continuum of awakening. Awakening is a process, okay? And along the continuum, there comes a point when you're getting close to enlightenment, on the continuum of awakening. And you'll probably, or likely, or maybe, have an opportunity to review past lives. But without the ego, and not in the egoic sense. In a sense, to see, first of all, the history, where you've come from. It will help you start to understand where you're going. That's karma. Help you to start to understand that. So on this continuum, and I was, I like to read other people's experiences. There's really there's not much information that I found available that somebody's talking to what happens after enlightenment. I'm talking here abiding enlightenment, lasting enlightenment. We have non-abiding, which gives you a glimpse. But there's very little that I've been able to find, or very little that is credible with me, that what happens after these experiences. But I like to think in the spirit of continuity, that there is no beginning and there is no end. So the continuum of enlightenment, awakening, enlightenment is non-ending. The spiral. How high can you go? How high can you go? And so while I'm talking about cycles, but I also want to talk about cycles of understanding, cycles of awakening in the same spirit. The cycles of enlightenment, cycles of awakening. Now you read many places, or many people will share this story, because there's many, many beings in the history of the earth that have made this journey. Awakening, enlightenment, and beyond. And whatever the reason is, it seems that more and more people are having these experiences. There's a reason in the continuum, in the cycle. There's a reason that more people are interested in it, awakening, enlightenment. Mindfulness has taken on a life of its own. They've taken mindfulness and taken it out of the spiritual realm where it belongs, with everything else, and put it as a separate category. I'm a mindfulness teacher. Well, we know about teachers. Teachers can only point. It's that way, that way. Teachers point. And they become well aware of how to help each student, what their sensibilities are, what their understandings are, what they need to look at. So a good teacher might tell you, hey, take a look at this behavior, this belief, this experience, take a look at it on a personal level, take a look at it, review. Or maybe you won't be so lucky, maybe they won't make it so easy for you, they won't verbalize. They just say, like in my Zen training, when we try to solve a koan, I'll hit you with a stick, which means you didn't get it. And I said before, literally, they will hit you with a stick. Literally. Today, in our more enlightened, more awakened times, the teacher probably won't hit you with a stick. Okay. Although, as an aside, when I talk to people that grew up in Taiwan, one of the first things as I know them better, I say, "Did the teacher ever hit you?" "Oh yes, almost without a fail, they have a memory of the teacher hitting them." And teachers, this memory stays with them much longer than anything that you offered in the name of education. So, thankfully, this custom, this abuse is more like, this abuse is becoming rarer and rarer. So, it's an allegory, it's an allegorical hitting with a stick. You might have that kind of teacher, and then you have to find it on your own. And ultimately, in the end, you need to find it on your own. Anyway, don't you? Being lazy creatures, a lot of us would love someone to say, "Hey, to lay it out for it. You give me $1 jillion, and I will give you the path to the unfoldment of awakening and enlightenment." So, the traditions that in Zen, in the Japanese, in Zazen, Japanese Zen, two major schools I've mentioned before, Soto and Renzai. Well, Soto, I'm told, because I only practice Renzai, I'm told that Soto Zen speaks of instant enlightenment. That you just wake up right now in the moment, boom, like they turn the lights on in the theater after you watch the movie when they want you to get out. They turn the house lights on and it just brighten up, and you can see all the popcorn bags, and here you are in a safe environment enjoying the movie, and all of a sudden harsh reality is there. Get up. Someone else is coming back to practice suspension of disbelief, or more commonly known as watching a movie. So, and Renzai then talked about the moment might last 30 years. So it's instant when it happened, but it took 30 years of the process. And my own personal experience seems to be more on that side. My awakening process took years. You get a little glimpse, you hit the bliss space. You hit the bliss space. You'd see that, you'd discover that what you thought you were, you absolutely weren't. What you thought you were, you absolutely weren't. Yes. What you thought was real is an illusion. Maya, that's in Sanskrit, illusion. So, personally, for me, my first moment took years. Glimpses, and on the path to awakening. And again, some teachers say, well, you didn't have a real awakening until you're 100% enlightened. But I agree with the people who say that any experience, no matter how short or how long, of the not-self, of seeing what you thought as real, was not real. And it's even on the level of feeling what you felt was real, was not real. All the senses have helped you from birth to accumulate enough ideas, enough phenomena, enough observation that you know who you are and you know who is that outside. Well, imagine how disconcerting it was. You find out that first you had no idea who you were, which leads you to realization that how could you, if you don't even know who you are, how could you even have a clue who they are? Yeah. So, that first moment on the path to awakening took years. Took really a long time. And got that glimpse. Got a little taste of bliss. Got up on the top of the mountain so that I could see the vista. See the territory. The inkling. The light was coming on just a little bit. And I see now, with 2020 hindsight from yesterday's or 2 days ago, my talk, really useful in, because the process of reviewing means that hindsight. Now, true review is without judgment. Self-inquiry is without judgment, because judgment comes from the world of illusion. Judgment won't help you. It's a useless tool to judge yourself, much less have the audacity to think that you know enough to judge someone else. Anything that leads to separation, anything that leads to a divisive thought, that's places that you need to look. When you fall, so on this, you have an epiphany or an experience, doesn't matter if it's right now, or right now takes 30 years, doesn't matter. We all have our own rows to hoe, as the farmer would say. Hoe your own row. Yeah, hoe your own row. So, this moment, and this moment there was some recognition, but when you catch yourself falling back into old patterns of divisiveness, of separation, of judgment, I've mentioned before, I'd watch hubris, false pride. I had to watch this really close, as well as judgment. I've mentioned before that material things never really meant much to me. That power and wealth and money didn't really appeal. But there's always something else, isn't there? Yeah, so if one doesn't get you, something else will. Thinking that you're better than someone. Thinking that you've done anything that's unique. Anything that separates you from the herd. Because that's a definite clue that you're going the wrong way. You're talking about unifying with the universal, the all-encompassing sameness. The extraordinary ordinariness. Because I mentioned that the spiritual pursuit, spiritual inquiry is found through here, examining. But it's found in unity, cohesiveness, a wholeness. And the minute that you see or feel or think or hear anything that leads you to separation, it's usually this guy. It's usually the ego. Oh, you're better than them. You're more, whatever you are, you're better than them. And it's interesting that our whole system is based on becoming better than them. So, but in the bottom of things, maybe we have to start with, we don't know who we are, but we know who we aren't. We're not that. And accepting and taking a look at what we aren't, you're left with what we are. And I use the word love, but it implies some lack of. But it's totally the opposite. What you're discovering is abundance. What you're discovering is unlimited. We talk about what's left like leftovers, but it's hardly leftovers, It's hardly leftovers. It's everything. So, begin this process. The first cycle is unlearning who we think we are. Unlearning who we think we are. And it would lead you to who we are. Unlearning is a critical, we spend our whole life learning, and now I'm calling upon you to unlearn. Unlearn everything that leads you to divisiveness, leads you to separation. Because that's not what it's about. That's not what it is. And so we talked about abiding enlightenment, abiding awakening, unabiding awakening, the process. And then we'll put this term, enlightenment. Now some people use them interchangeably, and at times I will too. But in some sense, it's useful to look when you're talking about non-abiding, awakening that doesn't last. Awakening that you slip back, that your ego will peak up, that you slip back into separation. When you have forgotten that the basis of all of this is surrender. Can't go anywhere until you surrender. You surrender the mythology of the Maya, of the illusion. So on the continuum, they talk about awakening, and they talk about enlightenment, and maybe that's abiding awakening, where you won't fall back. There come a time in your progress when you become a moment, again, in the cycle of rediscovery, which is unique to each of us. It's our birthright to have this unique opportunity. And the opportunity presented us because we're in a body. Very, very unique and special opportunity for a journey into acceptance, into recognition of what you've always known. That abiding, that lasting enlightenment. Again, they'll talk about happens in the moment. Well, my experience with that was days. Took days. So my moment of awakening was years. Non-abiding awakening. My experience of my transition, my evolution into the next level, abiding awareness or enlightenment, took days. The experience that I went through lasted 2.5 days. And I don't really know about other people's experience. Maybe some people just go, and they wake up and they got it. Maybe their karmic debt was less than mine. I don't know. But I'm just sharing. And I want you to leave. I want to leave you with this thought to remind you that there's not a destination. A journey implies a destination. And we've already established that. We use the metaphor of journey to go from one place to the next. But there's nowhere to go. It's all right here, right now. Thank you.